30th anniversary of the Mac. That's pretty cool. In October, it'll be the 30th anniversary of MacNexus. So that's even better. I think we have a few people here. I should introduce myself. I'm Ken Spencer, and I'm been on the board for 3-4 years now, and I'm the new president, and I teach every time we have an opportunity usually. We also have on the third Saturday of every month down at the Sacramento Food Bank some more basic Mac and some basic iPad iOS classes. And Tara and Richard teach those. I also do tech support in and around, either online or in person, so you can ask me about that separately if you'd like, and you can always get a hold of me through the website. Good morning. So 30th anniversary of the Mac, it was January 24th, 1984 when the Mac was introduced. There's some great videos around the internet, and I'll try to put links to those on the website. MacNexus started in October of '84, so it wasn't too long after the Mac came out that Gail McGovern started MacNexus. So pretty neat. And we're 600 members strong. So, sorry, we didn't have enough chairs out, you guys. Again, kenspencer.com, click on MacNexus. So today, we're going to go through something you can be very useful with and have fun with it, but also you can be overwhelmed by mail. So hopefully I'm going to show you ways to help tame and manage your mail, because everybody's getting too much email these days. Even the email you're really meaning to get, let alone all the other spam and everything else. So we'll talk about how mail works first, and I'm just going to draw a little thing up on the board here. So, hello. And I'm a terrible artist. So, everybody keeps hearing about the cloud. And the cloud intimidates some people. But it shouldn't, because ever since you've been checking your email, you've been using the cloud. Not Apple's iCloud, but the cloud. The cloud is nothing more than a computer that exists somewhere that you access. But since you can't see it, it's ethereal and it must be in the cloud, right? Well, I'll use Gmail as an example for what we're going to talk about today, just because it's easier to wrap our hands around it a little bit. Gmail, which is Google Mail, which I highly encourage. If someone sends me an email to my Gmail address, or if I'm on Comcast or AT&T, U versus Yahoo, please get rid of Yahoo, don't use it. I'll talk about that later. It gets sent to the Gmail server. Think about this like a post office. It is sent to the post office. It's not sent directly to your house, right? It transits from post office to post office and goes around. Same thing here. If someone's in Mozambique and they send me an email, it's going to go through a few servers and it will end up at the Gmail server or Gmail post office. Once it gets there, I can get that mail in a couple ways. The first is the old standby where you go into Safari or a web browser and you type in gmail.com and your credentials and it comes up in a web browser, right? How many people are using only the web browser to check their mail? Okay, who's your provider?
I got a couple, Gmail and AOL.
So you got to go to two different spots.
One's my backup in case the other one.
Okay.
I use both.
Both? You got to go to two different spots on the web? You guys really like doing extra work. Who else wants to be up for my punishment here? Who else uses Safari to get their Safari or any other browser? What that's doing is, that's the equivalent of driving to the post office and going in and pretend like, we all have a home address, but pretend like we have a secondary place at the post office that's our same address, but in fact, that's how we can check our mail by going to the office. Hang on here. Got mail. That's the equivalent of going here. And those of you that use 2 accounts, it's equivalent of driving over to another post office and checking your mail directly. So when I log in, internet's a little slow. When I log in, I'm going directly to the post office and I look in and say, well, do I have any new mail? I can look at it there. I can reply. I can delete whatever I want to do directly to the account, Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, iCloud.com. That's going directly to the post office. But the way it's set up is we have our Macintoshes, our iPads, and our iPhones, and multiple ones of those sometimes. And if I want to, obviously these can all go with the browser to get there, but we want to use, and we're going to talk about mainly today, the mail client. And what a mail client, and M-A-I-L, by the way, a mail client means that it is going to go out for you. You're not going to have to drive to the post office. It's going to go and check with Gmail's post office and say, do you have any new messages for me? And if you do, send me a copy. Send me a copy. Send me a copy. Send me a copy. Now you notice I didn't say go get the mail, I said send me a copy. So mail clients go to the post office and pull you back a client. It's the equivalent of as if your postman is bringing you a copy of everything that got sent to the post office. Okay? Now, I always get the question, they say, well, Ken, my Mac isn't syncing with my iPad, and my iPad's not syncing with my iPhone. They don't sync together. They return back and forth to the post office. In better mail situations, if I went here and I replied, it would come down to these and say, hey, you replied to that email. Does that make sense? I think I'm glazing over. Okay. Again, it goes and checks the server for mail and brings it down to your device. And that's Apple Mail or Mail on our iOS devices, okay? That's a client. Rather than going to Safari and entering your password every time, you simply tap on the mail icon and on your Mac right here. Okay? That's what's called a mail client. It's simply an application that allows you to check mail, and it's built into every Apple device. It's built into virtually any device these days, but we're using mail on here. Go ahead.
You mentioned that the iPhone and the desktop don't sync in any way. Could you give me an idea of the path the message takes? My son down the hallway will send me a Gmail email, and sometimes there's a huge difference amount of time before I get it on my desktop and my phone. I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah, that's a little anomaly right now. It's really strange. And so what he's asking is the pathway that it takes. Well, sometimes that pathway can be very circuitous, and it can really take a long way to get to you. You know, it's traveling at the speed of light, but somewhere it's in some sort of time warp. It's common now, until they fix it, for an email to your Macintosh comes in minutes after it comes in on your iOS device. The difference with that is it's because the way the client works. Believe it or not, the way it works on your iOS device, there's a thing called push, where it says, hey, it sends it an information telling I've got new mail, and it'll essentially not bring the whole mail, but it'll bring the announcement that there's mail there. Where on this device, it's a pull. And sometimes it gets a little slow. It eventually comes in. There have been some challenges with Mavericks and Gmail, and frankly, it's not Apple and Mavericks' fault. It's the fact of the way Gmail handles what's called IMAP. We'll go into IMAP a little bit later. All right, so again, this is like the cloud. Mail gets sent eventually to a server, and then you can download it to your devices. And realistically, you want it to show up on all your devices. You also want it to be able to show if you've replied or if you've already checked that mail. Now, we have your internet service provider, whoever that is, Comcast or Xfinity, SureWest, Broadwave, Wave, Broadband, whatever, AT&T, gives you a free email address or up to 10. Now, who here is using their internet service provider's email address as your main email address? Give me the, who is it? Comcast. Yours is SBC. Anybody else? So is everybody, the rest of you are using Gmail or one of the free alternatives? I'm sorry?
I can't hear you, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, my ears plugged up.
Oh, well, we'll go to the cloud and see if we can fix it. How's that? Come sit up front if you'd like. Or just see.
I have full spectrum. That's all.
Okay. So, I am a firm believer, and many people in the tech industry believe that you should not depend solely on your internet service provider as your one and only email address. Many reasons. SureWest was bought recently by another company. They haven't told anybody they have to change their email address. They could. Comcast years ago, I started with Comcast years ago, and in the span of about 5 years, you would have had to change your email address 5 times and still use them as a service provider. When Comcast first came out, they didn't want to handle the email. They offloaded it to a thing called At Home. So you could get a free At Home email address that was what your Comcast was. Well, then At Home got bought by Excite. They didn't let you keep your At Home. You had to then go to excite.com. Then all of a sudden, Comcast decided to handle it again. And then, believe it or not, ATTBI, which was AT&T Broadband Internet, was who was handling the mail for Comcast. And then finally, Comcast says, okay, well, we'll handle it ourselves. AT&T, for the longest time, has had Yahoo handling. ATT SBC Global has had Yahoo handle it. Yahoo is the worst. Hands down, the worst. I make a lot of money by you people that have AT&T Yahoo email accounts. I don't like making my money that way. I'd rather go on to positive things and help you out. I'm sorry, it's garbage. It really is. Yahoo, AT&T, SBC Global, Yahoo is terrible. The alternatives are, Apple gives you a free iCloud account. It can be temperamental, might be a good word for it. It has its growing pains. But Gmail seems to be the best, most robust, and for the most part works pretty well and pretty seamlessly. It doesn't mean you have to drop your Comcast. It doesn't mean you have to drop what you currently have. But think about this. We're all getting older. At some day we may move into a retirement community, we may move somewhere else. What happens if AT&T or Comcast isn't offered there? You're going to have to, within a month, say, well, I'm not with them anymore, and all of a sudden that email address stops working. So you've got to really hustle around to send everybody you know your new email address. If you prepare ahead of time and have a Gmail or an equivalent as an alternate email address, you can gradually start using that, and then all the people in your contacts will know that that's your email address. There's no disadvantage to it, and eventually you can use it as your primary. We have two questions there, then up here.
If you started with .mac, which then moved to .me, it also now has .iCloud. Are you getting the same mail if you use any one of those?
Yes. .mac continues. It spoofs it as .me. There's some things, I mean, if you have it set up as .mac, continue using .mac if you want, but it is, if you have .mac, it can be a .me and a .iCloud. If you have a .iCloud, it can't necessarily be a .me or a .mac, though. In other words, what happened is, so Apple years ago said, free email for life. And they gave us the iTools, and we got a .mac email. Then, well, we didn't really mean that. We changed and we started charging for it and stuff. But then they went, when Apple started to do the online syncing services and stuff, they said, well, no more .mac. Anybody knew as a .me. And a .me was because the people in the Windows world didn't want a .mac account. So .me, and I don't know why Apple has decided to abandon that, and everything now is .iCloud. So it's interoperable for you if you've had a .mac and your .mac continues to work.
So when you're sending mail and they all drop down, and you have an option, you can take one or the other. Do you always want to use this? Does it matter which one you use as to what?
Sometimes it may not go through if you choose if you're normally doing Mac, you'll know it'll say, hey, I can't send it, and it says choose another server. There's some ways to set that up, but for the most part, if people sending it to you, you should get it. It's your reply. Was there a question there?
I just want to relay the story. When I first got this, an iPhone, I had Sure West only. And I went up to Tahoe and was very frustrated because I could only receive mail
Right.
and I couldn't send it out. And it took me many weeks talking to people, why is this happening? You know?
Call Ken. I could have fixed it for you.
I wasn't good this group.
It's Sure West has, but let's not blame Sure West on this. Actually, it's their fault, but it's also there's a reason they do that. What happens is when she's at home on her Sure West, she's able to send out because she has Sure West, and they see that email is coming from her as a Sure West person. But Sure West and most good internet providers want to make sure they don't have spammers using their service. So she was outside of there either using the cell phone towers or somebody else's Wi-Fi, and she couldn't send out from Sure West. Essentially, it goes, so what happened in her case, she's on a tower here, and Sure West is over here, and she's trying to send email to someone here. Well, if she's at home and she's on the Sure West tower, they recognize her. They're authorizing her because they have her password and her username. But she's up here on this tower now. It's repeating to here. It goes through a server, and then it goes to Sure West, and then it goes out to somebody. What's happening is Sure West is preventing that hopping because they don't want spammers to use it. There's just a setting in their accreditation that you can do with that. But that's fairly common, and believe it or not, that's one of the reasons to go to Gmail is because it handles this very well.
If you set up a Gmail account, well, let's just say we have a Gmail account that has both of our names on it.
Uh-huh.
And then say that I want to do a Gmail with just my name on it.
Uh-huh.
Can I use the same password that the other Gmail account is?
The answer is yes, you can use the same password. The question is, should you? And we'll talk about passwords in a second here. So the criteria for Gmail on passwords, it's 8 characters or more, I think now. Sometimes you throw a letter in. But let's diverge a second because first of all, we're talking about mail. Mail is the keys to the kingdom, are the keys to the kingdom. We all have, if we do online banking, which is very safe and very secure, but in your online banking account, you have an email attached to it. And this is one of the reasons I say get away from Yahoo. They get snooped, they get cracked. all the time. But if you have an email tied to that checking account or that savings account, and someone is able to get into your email, they would go to the bank if they knew your username, which many times is our email address, and say, you know what? I have a new email address. Oh, or excuse me, I'm trying to log in. I forgot my password. Can you email it to me? Well, if they have hacked your email account and they have access to your email account, they'll then get your password, and then they can go into your account and change what email is attached to that account and do it. It's not easy to do, and the banks have I'm not trying to scare everybody because the banks are very secure, and most of the time you're not liable for any of that. But the question about passwords is this. I want to expose you to convenience and security, and where you fall along that line is your choice. My job is to make sure you know which way to go. I am way, way too much on the convenience end of it. Richard is on the security end of it, and he even admits he doesn't do all the security things that he does. Believe me, I do all the convenience things I say, because that's how I fly. Passwords. So in this case, let's say you had the same password for your bank account that you had for your email, and somehow someone got your email password. They would have the password for your other, all your other accounts and things. I have pretty simple passwords I use for most things, but what I do now is I put a suffix on it, and let me give you an example. So Apple is getting more and more secure with their passwords, and the reason being is you'll soon be able to buy things with your iPhone, because iTunes is the largest repository of credit cards of any retailer. So as Apple gets into these secured payments and different things like that, you're going to be able to use your iPhone and maybe with fingerprint recognition and say, okay, I want to buy that $700 TV. And you might be able to do it right from your iPhone through your credit card that's on your iTunes account. But passwords, Apple requires the password to be, and I'll just make one up, so one capital letter, eight characters or more, A, B, C, D, then 1, 2, 3, 4. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 with one capital letter. It has to be 8 characters, include at least one number, and at least one capital letter. One way to really secure things is to add a special character, okay? But I'm going to go off this base one, and let's say I really like this password. Obviously, this is not one you want to use, but let's say this is the password we want to use. So if I'm going to Wells Fargo, I would put WF at the end of my password. If I'm in Gmail, I would go Gmail at the end of my password. So now I have one password, but I have a suffix that's unique to the site I'm at. So if somebody were to crack into Wells Fargo, they wouldn't know my Gmail password. To me, this is the simplest way to deal with this. Because we all know you start writing these passwords down and you don't know what it is here, what it is there, etc. So you could have a base password and then do things. You could have iTunes. Amazon is the tough one. Is it AM or is it AZ? You decide. But I just think, to me, that's the simplest way to use one common password everywhere, but have a unique identifier at the end. And realistically, there's no way they can associate one to the other. Okay? Does that make sense? Does everybody kind of grasp that? I think it's the easiest. And I'm doing that more and more. As I do new passwords for new sites, I'm using my base passwords that I have, and then I'm just putting, Kaiser Permanente, KP at the end, something like that. So it's a great way to have your passwords. Now, what always comes up is, I've changed my password. And people think that if they change their password for Gmail, that it changes their iTunes password. That's the equivalent of having 2 cars in the garage, and you know your house got broken into, and you change all the locks on your house. Did it change the keys to your car? No, they're separate, they're different. And remember this though, if you change the locks to your house, you better give your spouse the new keys or they can't get in. That's your choice, and we won't go down that road, but the idea is that if I change my Gmail password, if I go to the website and sign into Gmail, that's where I change my password and I can change it there, but I also have to change the password on anything that connects to that. But that doesn't mean I have to go to the bank site where I use my Gmail as my account one. It doesn't change my bank password, it's only changing the password for the email. And that's the hardest thing. What will happen is, if you go into the website and change your Gmail password, all your little devices will say, hey, I can't get in, I don't have the right password, and it'll usually prompt you for it. Okay, passwords they're terrible. Apple's getting better, they're trying to make it so you can so they'll store your passwords for you. It just isn't there yet. All right.
I think I might have lost that here. So if you want to change your Gmail password, you go directly to Gmail and you change it there. Then you need to change it also on each of your devices?
Correct.
It doesn't just change it up there?
No, and it's a good thing it doesn't.
Okay.
So again, you have to log into your Gmail or your Comcast or your Yahoo or your iCloud and change your password there. And then what will happen is the next time this goes and tries to check for mail, it'll say, well, I don't have, because it stores the password, it says, I don't have the correct password. So it'll prompt you to put in your new password. Okay? Passwords are tough to deal with. Believe me, with Apple's fingerprint recognition, they're trying to save us from that and make that happen better, but it's not there yet. And believe me, we're at the edge here. Apple is walking very carefully to make this happen because, believe me, if someone did something wrong and got their mail compromised by doing something they shouldn't by using the fingerprint reader on this, or if they wanted to log into their bank site, Apple would be the one blamed, even though the person did whatever it is they did wrong. So they're being very careful with how they're doing this fingerprint reading. And I think in the near future, you're going to not have to deal with passwords. You'll be able to use fingerprint recognition to get into sites. Okay? All right. So we've beat that to death. Passwords are critical. They're the keys to your kingdom. So please be careful with your passwords. 1234 is not a good password, and also it's not a good idea to use words that are in a dictionary, because there are programs that sit there and try to attack a password site or a site and try to say, okay, here's every word in the dictionary, see if it comes up. Now, you could have the word, let's try MacNexus. You could do $MACNEXU$. So see, it kind of looks like MacNexus, but it uses things that are not necessary, and MacNexus isn't in the dictionary anyway.
Folks that run the dictionary figure that out and run those against them too.
The question was, can folks run those too? Yeah, they can, but you have increased the probability so dramatically. You can also, if you put a number in between, on my password, I have a derivation of my password. I just throw a 9 after my first letter, and it really helps a lot because it breaks it up. If your name is John Smith, your password shouldn't be J Smith. Okay? Now, it'd be better if you put J3 Smith. That helps a little bit, but still. You gotta just kind of, and again, it's convenience versus security. And realistically, you'd have different passwords for everywhere, but then you got to write them down, then you can't remember them and everything else. So try this little trick. You could have a simple password. It could be only 6. It could be only 6 characters, and then you throw a suffix on it. It doesn't even have to be this long. It could be A, B, C, D, 1, 2, and then your suffix, because that satisfies the 8. Now there's some weird sites that require a special character, or there's weird sites that might require more than that letter. And and the other thing Apple requires is no character can repeat more than twice in succession. You could have B, B, but not B, B, B. Okay, I don't know why, but that's how they do it. Question?
Why don't you use something like LastPass and
There's password things out there, LastPass, Dashlane, 1Password. They're all pretty good. They take some massaging to get them up and running. The problem with LastPass and 1Password, these are what they're called, these are password programs that are very secure, and they can generate this huge long password. For every site has a unique, probably 15, 16 character password, 12, whatever, but good luck. I mean, if you lose LastPass, I mean, you have to make sure you have your password to 1Password, LastPass in there. But what happens is, if you're on a new computer or somewhere else and you want to log into your bank site because you think you might have had fraudulent activity, good luck knowing what that super long password is.
you don't need that though, you just need the LastPass.
Not if you're on somebody else's computer. You don't want to expose it to that. I didn't say they're not good. They're not easy to set up. They're good. They are quite good. But again, I'm waiting for Apple's solution because I think the fingerprint's going to be the ticket.
Ken, are you going to talk about keychain for password?
No, because this is a male class.
That's fine.
So, her question was about keychain, and I think, I just think it's.
What is keychain?
Keychain is what stores your passwords. Okay, I've bloviated too far. Let's dig into mail. So, Apple Mail, we're going to talk about the clients on Apple Mail, which is the postage stamp. We're going to talk about it for the iPad and the iPhone. And we're going to go through some of the preferences. Now, I have tried to configure my email on the Mac, and remember, we're recording this so you can go back over this, the way that it ships from Apple. Now, this is the screen you see. A lot of people like the old way the screen was. Does anybody remember the old way where it was laid out a little differently? Well, in Lion, they changed it. The first change most people want me to make for them is we go up to Mail, come down to Preferences, and say Use Classic Layout. So if I use Classic Layout, now we see what it's like. And then I hit Show. And now we're back to where we're very familiar if you've been around a Mac for a while. The reason that Apple changed it is because it looks very much like it does on the iPad, the new layout. So those people that are new to the Mac that came from an iPad will have the look and feel exactly the same. So if I go back to this old style, how similar does that look to the new style here? See? So that's why they did that. But most people want to see Preferences, it's under Viewing, because we want to see how we view it, Use Classic Layout. And then I click over here, because I like to see my mailboxes. I click on Show. Okay. Got that? Great. So the other thing that happens is, I don't know how many of you are aware, but the eye picks up colors and shapes really well. They can really help you differentiate things. Think of purple squares and orange circles and things. So what Apple did, because they really want to help you, is they made all the icons gray. And they took the words away telling you what they were. You can take minimalism pretty far, and I think they took it too far because you don't have to pay extra to have letters exposed. And the way to do this is secondary click, control click, or right click, control click on the bar here, and say icon in text. And now we see what the icons really mean.
Okay, say that again.
Control click. Here's how it ships. Let's go up here and I'll show you here. You can also go down here and go to Customize Toolbar, okay? So up to View, because we're talking about viewing it. View. Come on, Ken. View. Customize Toolbar, and then there's a little pull down right here. There's a little pull down right here, and I say icon and text. And that gives you the icon and text. Now the weird thing is, if I've already activated mine, but if I hit reply, they're not there either, and so you have to do that on each screen. All right. So excuse me one sec here. These guys have rung me like 6 times. Teaching a class right now, comma, I will call you later, period. I can deliver it tomorrow. I will be in town, period. Okay. Sorry. But they'll continue to call and call and call because they don't think I get the first message. All right. So let's explore Customized Toolbar because there's some really useful things up here. In fact, what I'm going to do is set mine to the way it was from the factory. Right here, it says default toolbar. So I'm going to drag my default toolbar up there. And now it's exactly the way it came from Apple. Get mail. Of course, again, when you have the icons up there, I don't even know what some of those mean. So, control click, icon and text. Who are you looking for, Jim?
Charles Clark.
Charles Clark right there.
I found it, thanks.
Ken, which one is control? You've got a mouse here.
If you've got a mouse, if you have right click enabled, it's right click, but control is, I'll show you here on keyboard viewer, hang on. The control key is the one right here next to the function. You have command, option, and control. So you hold control. Now this brings up a point, and I'll do it really quick. When we're typing, if you want to hit capital H, you hold down the shift key and then hit H, right? You don't try to hit them both at the same time. Well, these 3 keys are also modifier keys. So if I'm going to hit control, I hold control down, and then I do what I want to do. I don't try to time it. It's just like holding the shift key down. You hold it down, and then you do whatever letter or thing you want to do with it, and then you can let go. You don't have to go time it just right because it won't work. Okay. So up in the toolbar, if I go to View and I go to Customize Toolbar, here's a panel of things we can add to our toolbar. Don't go overboard, but there's some useful things up there. You see what we have to begin with. I like to add, well, one you can add is print. Some people like that, but you wouldn't necessarily need it on this screen because you don't print this screen. You print it when the mail comes up. But what I like to make sure is on my toolbar is smaller and bigger. So it's really tough to add this to it. I just simply drag that up there. And now, see my text? Okay. So that's bigger and smaller, and if I'm doing a new message, let's say, I don't have it here. In fact, hang on. I got to turn some things off because you guys don't have these from stock. So I'm going to go also View, Customize Toolbar, and I'm going to drag bigger and smaller up here. And that way if I'm doing a message and I want to make it is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country, period. Come on. If I want to make that bigger or smaller. Oh, it's not letting me do it for some reason. Ah. I'm in a new message. Oh, no, I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to set that aside. All right. So bigger and smaller is here, customized toolbar, and you have all these different things. Redirect, copy, take all accounts online. That's actually not a bad one to have there. Add to contacts. If you get email from somebody, I'm going to put that one up there. And I'll add address to the other one.
Can you do this on the iPad also?
No.
No, just the Mac.
Just the Mac. When I go through the rest of the stuff, it'll be iPad and everywhere else. So, all right, so we're in Mail. And if I go here and I see Add Sender, I'm on my email from me, so I could add sender to my address book right from there. We're going to go over that later. Now, go ahead.
Speaking of your address book, my brother-in-law, he's one of those people who changes his name when he gets a new provider. And I sent him an email the other day, oh, we haven't had this for months, So I looked at it was on my phone.
Give him a hint. Gmail.
Yeah, he won't listen again on that person.
Well, then tell, if he's a PC person, tell him to get Hotmail.
So anyway, on my Mac, I can delete them on previous recipients, but on my iPhone, how do I
Do I have to get into that now? Yes, it's a great thing, and I'll show
Is it
you.
possible on the phone to do it? To delete under previous recipients?
I'll look into that. I think there is a new way in iOS 7. Let me check on that in a minute. I'm going to do previous recipients after the break, so remind me. Because it gets a little in the weeds right now if we do it. All right, so if I'm going to hit so across here, get mail, obviously that tells it to go get mail. Most of the time your stuff is set up to check for mail either 1 minute or 5 minutes, whatever, but you can force it there. New message is new message, just like that. Now, when we do a new message, this is what we're faced with on our screen. Many of you send joke emails and things out to people that are a group, okay? If you want to send an email to multiple people, the best thing is to use BCC. What does BCC stand for?
Line copy.
Okay. Again,
The under 30 carbon paper used to be how we
a
copied.
carbon copy or courtesy copy, I think it was just carbon copy. So let's talk about that protocol for a second, because email protocol is also important. You want to be a good player out there. You don't want people to get mad at you because you've put their email address in 10 million places. So, and this applies to iPhone or to iPad or to the Mac. So 2 is who you want to send it to. But think about an office situation where you're sending the CEO an email, sending Tim Cook at Apple an email, but you want to make sure his administrative assistant gets a copy. So you would CC the administrative assistant. And the reason you do that is so that Tim Cook doesn't have to forward it to the administrative assistant. So that way they know that it was CC'd to the other person. If I send something to my mom but I copy my brother, then my mom doesn't have to forward it to my brother. She knows that he got it. The other person sees who you CC. Now, you could CC a bunch of people and not ever put anything in 2. CC and 2 act the same in that regard. The CC is really just so people can see it. But the important thing you want to do is in this little box right here, you want to activate this and say BCC. What's that mean?
Line copy.
Blind carbon copy. So, all those people that send the jokes out and you see the 65 emails on the list did not blind carbon copy. That does not make me happy. Because now my email address is out there with a whole bunch of others, and they're just getting harvested by the spammers. So, if you want to blind carbon copy people, and I've seen this, businesses do this. So I used to be a sales rep and independent sales rep, and I would see companies send out emails, and I'd see all the other reps they work with because they wouldn't blind carbon copy. So I'm going, oh, they're talking to him. Okay, well, you know. So if you blind carbon copy, you don't have to put anything in 2, you don't have to put anything in CC, but that email goes to everyone you put in blind carbon copy, but they only see their own email address. They don't see anyone else. I could send this to 100 people. If I send it to Al, he would not see anybody else that's in that list. And the beauty of that is, first of all, there's anonymity. It also personalizes it. It looks like you're just sending it just to them. Use blind carbon copy whenever you're sending an email to a lot of people, unless, I'll give you the exception to that is, let's say you're planning a potluck, and you have 12 people coming to your potluck, and you send out an email, and you say, okay, here's a checklist. I want to see, tell me who's bringing dessert, who's bringing refreshments, who's bringing this. So that's sent to everyone, because first of all, then they can email each other. But secondly, when they reply, I'm the first one to reply and say, okay, I'll bring the salad. And everybody else sees then that I'm the one bringing the salad. So that would be a situation where you wouldn't necessarily BCC people because you want them to interact and see it.
If you get an email that has a BCC list on it, so you're the only one that got it, what happens if you hit reply all? Does it only go to the senders or go to everybody?
It only goes to one. So the question was, if you get, you don't even know that other people are on the list. You never see it. It never shows up anywhere. You can't dig in and find it.
Well,
you are the only one that shows up.
The other good reason to use that is if you send out a joke with 50 names on it, you're going to get 50 dozen jokes back.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sometimes it comes into either the sender's name or it comes into
Undisclosed recipients.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the way their mail sends it out, but it's essentially the same thing. And so you don't see your own email address, that's it. So there was another question here?
If I just do VCC and don't hit the little box, it doesn't work?
Oh no, once I expose BCC, every time you do a new email, BCC will be there.
So it's going to be blind.
Well, but no, only if you put a name in here. Like if I send this to Al right now, I would send that, it would go to him. BCC is here, but it's blank, so it doesn't do it. If I put other people down here, Al would get it, everybody would see Al, but nobody else would see anybody else's.
I understand that, but what's that little box next to the from? That one.
This is where you activate it. I turn it on.
That's what I'm saying, it has to be activated.
Or turn it off. Yes, and it's not just for that mail. Once you've turned it on, it's always there, so why not leave it on?
Oh, okay. How do you know it's on?
You'll see the BCC.
Oh, yeah.
And see when I click on it, the check mark tells me that I have both of them on. So what you do is every time if I click BCC now, it toggles it back off. If I click it, it toggles it back on. It's an off or on.
So
And
mine's on.
yeah, and that's the best thing to do. Even if you don't use it, it'll help remind you if you're doing one like, oh yeah, I got to put that in BCC. So turn it on. It doesn't come on by default. Okay?
But you have to do that each time.
Nope. Once you've set it on, it's on.
Okay.
A little different on the iPad, which I'll get to in a minute.
When someone sends you an email and then you want to pass it on, like we're talking about,
Okay.
something comes up and it says, do you want to
Include.
there? What is that?
All right. So when you reply or forward, if there's an attachment like a photo or a PDF or something, it's asking you, do you want to just send a reply email or a forward email, and do you want to include whatever that attachment was? And that's actually Apple trying to be nice. Hey, let's not clog up the internet. You may just want to reply, and if someone sent you a photo or you're trying to forward it, you need to include it if you want the attachment to go. Okay? Now, since we're on BCC, most people aren't aware on how you do it on an iPad or an iPhone. So, I've got my iPad up here. And if I go to new message on my iPad, by hitting this box right here, the compose, I get this, okay? And you can see I can start typing who it's to. Now, the most important thing, whether it's on your Mac or your iPad, if you start typing, let it fill in with a list because you're going to mistype that email address, I guarantee it. And if you've already sent or received an email from that person, it'll be fine. So if I go Pete, so I get a list, I've hit Pete, and there's a list of them. So I pick one there so that it fills it in so I don't mistype it. That's how a lot of us get bogus email addresses. But let's say I want to do BCC here. It's really strange. I have to click right here, and then BCC gets exposed. Okay? I'll go back over that. New message. I have to click right here where it says CC BCC, and of course it's showing me who I'm sending, which one of my email accounts I'm sending it from. So I tap that, and then I tap BCC, and now I can put it in. Okay? Those of you that have multiple email addresses, this is also the way I choose to send it from a different email address if I want. I had to expose it that way. Okay? So it's the same on the iPhone, just a little smaller. Now, getting back to, let's get out of full screen mode. Now, the other thing when you, Al?
Will you cover a little bit about signatures?
Yes. Going to do signatures after the break. So signatures and the previous recipients are going to be after the break. So I've said new email by clicking new message, and this is how we all want to, okay, don't go crazy with custom fonts and making your email look all fancy, because more than likely the other person doesn't have that font on their machine, and so it'll look like garbage when they get it. But you can do bold, you can do colors, and most email clients will do it. But there's this little button called Format up here. Actually, let me make sure it's on the toolbar by default. It is. So when I click Format, watch what happens. Everybody wants this. How you can do your text. So if I'm here, now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country, period. So now I can highlight this, and I can make the color red. I can bold it. I can italicize it. I can underline it. And that's all turned on and off just by clicking this Format button.
How did you highlight it?
Oh, just clicked and drag.
On the iPad too?
On the iPad, I'll show you in a sec. You don't have the same font choices, but I will show you how to highlight in a second. It's a little different on an iOS. So that's what that Format bar does. Once you've exposed it, it'll stay exposed. And it doesn't take up much room at all, so I really encourage it. And you can send your text and things. Now, if you go with centering text and things like that, it's no guarantee that the other person's email client will treat centered text correctly. And don't sit there and put, people like to move text over by putting a lot of spaces in there. If you do, okay, I want to do this and make it space all the way here. Spaces sometimes don't come across. So don't spend a ton of time formatting an email. It's not a newsletter. Okay, go ahead.
If you enlarge it when you're sending it, or when you're sending it, will it show up larger for them and vice versa?
If you change the font, it should show up for them. Most email programs will allow it now, but some really strip it down to its bare essentials. You have to think of email as kind of the lowest common denominator. You can't get super fancy in it because it's just, you're just trying to get a message across. Think about mail. Mail is content. Content, not all the frills and whistles and everything else. Okay? So, while we're in this new mail screen, I don't have iPhoto running on my computer, but I can go here and click Photo Browser, And I get this little window that shows stuff in my iPhoto. Oops, sorry.
Where was this photo browser?
I'm going to go back to it in a second here. Let me get to the right. I got too many open. So right here, photo browser, right up there. So click photo browser. Come on. Oh, there it is. So photo browser is just a little pop-up. And it really, really, really is tough to use. I can just take, wow, I've got a bit of a delay on my computer, sorry.
It's only on your Mac, though.
Yeah, you have to do it. If you're going to do photos from your other one, you have to copy and paste. Come on here. All right, I'm going to... I may have to restart mail. Who here doesn't have a time machine backup? Good time to remind you to back everything up.
Ken, are those toolbar preferences available on an iPad or just?
No. Again, you got to see, the iPad and the iPhone do more than your Mac does. But there's certain things they don't do as deeply. But let's think about this for a second. I mean, well, better yet, let's talk about this. I mean, this does more than my Mac does. There's certain things it doesn't do, and a lot of that is because it needs to dumb down the mail to work effectively, and there's other ways. And again, you know, to have a really fancy mail is not the idea here. I'm going to show you how to do fancy mail easy, but don't assume everybody can see it. So I'm back here to my photo browser. So I click the little photo browser button, okay? I don't have iPhoto open. I'm going to come down here and just grab... All right, I'm going to attach this. I go over to this photo, and I just drag it over to my email. And there it is. I can drag multiple photos over. But what I've done is, that's a pretty big photo, isn't it? I can change, and then it tells me it's 2 megabytes. Never send email more than 5 megabytes. You can send up to 10. Some people could send up to 20. But you might be able to send 20, but the other person might not be able to receive more than 10. So it gets lost in the ether. But if you just think about trying to keep it at around 5, you can exceed that a little bit. I'm giving you some wiggle room there. But you shouldn't. I mean, first off, this is the full-size photo. This is a big photo I took. And if they're going to print it, you're going to then want to send full size. But for them to look at it, I can adjust the size here and say, no, medium. That's more like what you see on an email, right? And that's only 110 kilobytes. That's really small. That'll go zing, no problem. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and take a couple photos. I'm going to take these 6 photos, and I drag them over here. I'm just dragging them. I'm clicking and dragging, and I'm putting them right there. And if I change my size back to what it was originally, actual size, there's 19 megabytes, which is way too big. So go to actual, I can go medium. See, medium's not bad, and that's still pretty good size photos. Okay? So we're going to get rid of that. And now we've got a thing over next to it that says show stationery. All right, so show stationery is pretty cool because now we can get fancy. Now, when I click on this, it doesn't stay here. In other words, when I do a new one, I have to click show stationery every time, okay? So unlike BCC, once you click it, it doesn't stay there. But here's some different things. Here's photos. So I look here and I go, oh, that'd be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do this one, let's say. So it shows you kind of what it is, and when I hover over it, it says this is an image placeholder. So now I go to my photo browser and say, let's put that Porsche picture right there. Let's take this sunrise, put there. And let's put this one right there. Now, this is blah, 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 only to show you what the font looks like. And that's in show stationery. Now, if I go to send this to me, test, if I go to send it, oh, it didn't give me the warning. I'm sorry. It should have. It should have said you didn't fill out any of the stuff. But that text, that just allows you to put different text in the body. Okay, again, new message, show stationery, and you have different ones here. And by the way, favorites, if you want to add one to your favorites, you simply grab this and drag it to your favorites. If there's one you use constantly. No one's asked the question yet, can I get custom ones? No, not from Apple. There are aftermarket ones, and it's very difficult to make these. Now again, don't assume the other person's mail will actually render these correctly. More than likely they will, okay?
At the bottom of that, it said, see my photos at www.apple.com. Is that a way you can share albums?
That's in an iPhoto class, but no, you can't really share an album that way. That was just a fill. That was just to fill in. Yeah. No, you can with Photo Stream by sharing a link, but that's about it. Okay. Right up here. See, I've got the stationery exposed, and now it says hide stationery. See, it's a toggle.
It's always there?
The show stationery button is always there, and when I click it, but it won't stay. Watch, I'm going to get rid of this one. When I do new message, I have to click show stationery. It isn't going to show up every time because it kind of gets in the way for most email.
With the cost of postage stamps going up, I was able to download a Christmas email stationery, and I put it in my custom on my Mac stationery. So I could send out an email with a Christmas bag.
You bought that though, right?
Right. It was like
Yeah, you but yeah, you can. There are, and they're good ones too. There's aftermarket ones.
How much was it? 99 cents or something like that.
Here's the one. This was Gail's road trip across Europe. I don't know why. I mean, that's just what they have today. But here's the email I got to myself. So this brings up another point in viewing. I'll come back to that because I want to go back to our new message. So we're composing a new message. We've seen how to change the font. We've seen how to do different things. If you have multiple email addresses, you can determine which one you want to send it from. For instance, if you guys decide to add Gmail, you can make a default email account, always go from this one, but oh no, I want to send it from this. Okay? But who here is running 10.8 or newer? Who isn't running 10.8 or 10.9 on their Mac? Okay, turn your heads. I have on my keyboard a function key right here, okay? So watch what happens when I double tap my function key. When I double tap my function key, comma, a little microphone comes up, comma, and it allows me to do speech-to-text dictation, period. New paragraph. If I say the word new and the word paragraph, it gives me double spacing, period, new paragraph. If I say the word new and the word single, or new line, it just did it, unfortunately, period. So, you double tap the function button to start it, You single tap the function button to stop it, and it will go for up to 30 seconds, and then it will time out and give you what it typed for you already, and you can add on to where you stopped. You can continue typing, comma, where you left off, comma, by hitting the function button again, period. Slow internet. It's trying. Go ahead, Bart.
Is there a website or a place where you can get all the commands that you need to say correctly, so comma, so it doesn't write the word comma or things like that?
I'm going to go into more detail on that exactly a month from today. I'm doing a Siri and dictation class. It's not just Siri, it's dictation. So no, there's not. I'm going to try compile a whole bunch of stuff to have it by that class. But what I wanted to show you here is on your Mac, as long as you have 10.8 or newer, you have dictation available. At this point, I'm not recommending on 10.9 Mavericks what they call enhanced dictation. I've had kind of trouble with it.
Is Lion?
Mountain Lion, 10.8. If you can run 10.7, you can probably run 10.8. And if you're on that, you can probably run Mavericks, probably. All right, so that's dictation, and it just helps a lot for doing it.
Does it get better and better? Because at first
I think I get better and better as rather than it getting better and better.
Is that what it gets used to?
No.
But I said it doesn't improve, because at first it didn't even get my name right. Now
Yeah, it's gotten better, and it's getting better all the time. What it's doing is, it's taking... So the way this works is, it records my voice, sends it out over the internet to Apple's supercomputers in Carolinas, and it crunches it and sends it back. But the whole time, it's got algorithms in there helping learn. And it's gotten better dramatically, and it's getting better all the time.
About your own dictation.
I'm sorry?
I'm talking about your own dictation, does it improve?
Not specifically you, it improves everyone's. There are programs called Mac Dictate, they're $99 to $129, that you actually, it learns your speech patterns.
So this doesn't do that?
No, it learns in general, but what it is it's harnessing the power of a very, very, very strong computer, which helps it. And I'll discuss more of that if you come to the Siri class or the Siri dictation class next month.
Theoretically, enhanced dictation will improve it.
Okay, we'll discuss that next time. Enhanced dictation, it doesn't send it over the internet, it does it on the computer, and I haven't liked it as much as this one. I turned it off, in fact. There was a question?
Well, I'm trying to send a test email with a pit photo. And it brings up cannot send message using the server mail.union.net.
Mail dot
The union.net.
the union, is that your email address? Are you connected to the internet? Okay, well, I'll have to look at that during the break. It could be this whole repeating thing we were talking about with Sure West. So I'll take a look at it.
Just occurred to me, on my phone, I mean, we have that ME account, .me email address, which if I send it out and somebody replies to it, never comes to my Mac, right? Because I haven't set up an account for that. How do I find the password?
Well,
I don't know.
come see me during the break or afterwards. All right, so now I want to go and we're going to talk quickly about composing it on the iPad or iPhone. So if I hit compose, I don't have a lot of choices here. But again, you type it in. If I hit the plus sign in the upper right here, it brings up my address book. But remember, if I just start typing someone, it brings up my address book. Now you'll notice in here, I have an I. That means that person's in my address book. Okay? That's why that means that. So I could hit the I and it shows me, oh, well, what do I want? Oh, actually, I take that back. Ah. I like the train whistle. I've got just time to do it. We're going to go through the previous recipients that you asked about.
I already figured it out now.
Okay, but I'm going to show you on the Mac too. So you'll see that I start typing Pete, and there's an I to the right. I was mistaken. If you hit the I can say remove from recents. But let's show you what happens on a Mac. So I'm going to make an ABC .com. One, two, three, at. Okay? So that I entered it. So that's now, and we know that's a bogus email. So if I quit this email, I'm going to say don't save. And now when I go to new message and I type it was 1, 2, 3, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Oh gosh, I've done it before, but it was ab.com. Okay. So now I have to enter it, and then I click here. Gosh, why won't it let me do the wrong one? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 4, 5, 3 at axyz.com. Okay. Oh, I have to try send it. That's why. Send anyway. So I just sent. Hopefully that's not someone's real email address. So now I do. So now I'm going to hit new message, and I started with 143 AXDE, right? So I click on that. Then I hit return. Now it's formatted like a regular email address that I've sent to or received before, but every time I hit 1, it comes up. Like if you just one time did Bob. Well, there's no Bob email address, so it tries to fill in the wrong one. You click here and say remove from previous recipients list. Okay? And therefore, if I hit 1 again, it won't be there. But let me show you another way to do that. If I go up to Window and hit previous recipients, if I sort by name, or sort by email, actually, it should be by ones. So there's my 11435AXDE, right? I can hit that and say remove from list. And now that mistake doesn't pop up. But what's really neat on this list also is you can see here, these means these are in my address book. So they're correct. So the little icon means they're in your address book. Like this one for Karen Duffy here, it's not in my address book, it's a previous recipient. Okay? And I have the option of adding it to contacts right there. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, in my address book, I have people's addresses that are old and they've changed their email since then. And I've gone into bring up address book and it says edit.
Right.
So I've taken the old one out, printed in the new one. But still, when I go to mail them, the whole series of their old ones still come out.
And those are because they're previous recipients, so this would be a way to purge that. Okay, I'll go back over that.
But my drop-down box that said, we'll show that drop-down.
So if I go here and I go new message, and I'll just type, there's a lot of P's right there, okay? So you would select the one you don't want, and then you go delete from previous recipients. But in fact, your easiest way to manage that is go up here to Window, come down to previous recipients, and here will be the list of them. And the ones with the little card mean it's in your address book. So on that person, you can delete all the ones that aren't in the address book and they won't show up in the pull down anymore.
So, how would I do that?
Just click on it.
Highlight it and
Just click on it and hit remove from list. And you can do multiple ones. You know, you could do multiple if you wanted to. But that's going to be your easiest way. It's a little bit tougher on the iPad. Again, on the iPad, what we do is you start typing Pete, and then you see an I. So I'm going to tap the I. And then if I scroll down, it says remove from recents. But watch what see, I can't hit the I on the other ones because they're in my address book. The I is only on the one that's not in your address book.
Oh, I thought it was just wrong.
Intuitively it should be, and it's not. Because when you hit I anywhere else, it's giving you more information. But the other thing you can do on this, like watch this. Let's say we're doing a new mail, and we type in Pete. And if I go to the I have an option to add it to an existing contact or create new contact, or hidden down there is removed from recents. Okay?
A lot of times I'm thinking, where's that?
Go ahead.
Will you be showing us during the next session today how to get a group
Yep.
for sending an email?
Yep. In fact, let's do groups real quick because it doesn't take long and we've got like 4 minutes. So, unfortunately, groups. So what are groups? Groups, you go into contacts and you can create a group in here. So I'm going to go up here and say new group. Okay? And I'm going to call this AAA test class. Okay? I only did that so it would come to the top because it's alphabetical on your groups. So now, I have a group called AAA. Good thing it wasn't AA. As I always say, MacNexus is our 12-step program for Apple products. So I'm going to go to my contacts. And I'm going to choose some people. I've made a group. Remember, I went up here and I said new group. And I'm going to hold down my command key and hit a bunch of these. So let's hit AAA. All right? So I've got all these selected. I take my hands off my keyboard and I click and hold and drag those 8 people to my group. All right? Now they're there. So let's say I'm going along and I'm going, oh, you know what? I can't remember if AAA is in the group. So if I click on AAA and I try to drag it to the group, it won't let me put it there because it's already there, preventing any duplicates. Now, here's my group, right? Let's hope I have some emails on there. Good. So now watch this. So we've made a group. Actually, I probably have to quit mail. We'll see. So remember, if we're going to do a group, we probably want to do it in BCC, right? Watch what happens when I press AAA. Oh, look at that. It filled in my group name, and if I hit return, there's everybody. Now remember, I had 8 people in my group, didn't I? There's only 5 there.
Multiple addresses?
No, the rest of them don't have email addresses. AAA didn't have an email address, so it doesn't show up there. It will only show the ones with email addresses, which makes sense.
Do you always have to pre-destinate groups before you, or can you in BCC directly say, type each one? I know
you can type each person. Okay, good question. So let's take it one step further. So I've got this group, but I want to add Al to it. Rather than add him to the group, I can simply add him to this email. Okay?
Just by dragging, or start to type it, and then it goes in.
Start typing and fill, or you can actually, watch this, let's customize our toolbar. This is our last tip before the break. View, customize toolbar, and I'm going to put address right up there, because it should be there. And now if I click address, it's a read-only version of my address book. And now I can say, okay, add Aileen Murphy to it. And I'll just put her, oh, I don't have a, hello. Oh, I know what you do. So I put my cursor here. They've changed this. So my cursor's here. So if I double click on Adam Coster here, if I double click, oh, come on. Oh, they made it so you can double click. See here? I can add it to BCC, or add it to 2, or add it to CC.
How do you do it?
You can't drag it.
Yeah.
That's news to me. Sorry, Apple doesn't want you to, that's a drag. Apple doesn't want you to use drag.
How do you do it for just the iPad?
You don't,
You can't?
nope. So, let's talk about how cool the iCloud is, though.
Can I ask you something about that picture?
Go ahead.
You don't have the margin on the left where where it has all if you want to sort through groups. I have a column on the left that lists all.
Right here.
No, it's next to that one you have open.
Talking about this?
When you're sending, the mail you're sending.
Here?
Yeah, that big one. Right next to that, I would have a margin that's similar to the little one on the left, but not the whole list of contacts. But it has everything else that's business, like you do in mail.
Huh.
And so I can stand down my groups and decide which groups I want to draw, put in there.
What operating system are you running? Which, are you running Mavericks? I'd have to see that. Sounds good. No, all right, so if I go to mail, I'm sorry, I was going to go to contacts. So you'll notice in contacts, if I click up here, I'm in all contacts. If I click groups, I already have AAA test there, don't I?
But you made it in the Mac.
I made it in the Mac, but through the cloud, it synced back to here.
But there's no way of doing it just on.
I'm going to try it. Last I checked, it wasn't. I hope I'm wrong. So I'm going to go to mail, and I'm going to go to new message, and I'm going to type AAA. But let's try it this way. No. Found it. Thank you. I'm so glad you asked. Okay, let's go back. That was my eureka moment.
Okay.
I even get them when I teach, see?
This is for iPad now.
So we're in iPad or iPhone, iOS. See the little plus up there? That shows me the same thing like my little address book pop-up, but look at what, I don't know if this will work. Let's try it. Groups. It'll only show me the people in the group. It won't let me move them. Yeah. I'm sorry. I think that'll come. Yeah, I thought when it showed me groups there, it would let me bring the whole group. I think iOS 8, which will be out in the fall, we should get that. Sorry. Apple is trying really hard, and they have all the money in the world, but Apple's problem is getting people to do this. And it's not their spread so thin, it's just hard to get good quality people in there. And Apple is very careful, and they just go through things slowly and steadily. And they don't care what anybody else does.
When you're in iPad mail like right now, and you want to have a large email you want to read, can you eliminate the index on that?
Only if you turn it this way. And it just helps with length. The width is about the same, but that's what that is. So see what's really bizarre here is the iPhone works well in portrait mode, and it seems to be in portrait mode. The iPad, and I never thought this until I got one, it works so well in landscape mode. And it's funny because the home button would be essentially on the bottom, but it's on the sides. So that, and in many, you'll find iPhoto and many different things, you get different layout. And I mean, if you think about that, that's how smart Apple is with this stuff. They're just so smart. But there is no way to say open a mail like you were talking about.
I know you're not talking about notes, but I made several notes on my iPad, and I went and back and they're gone. How do you make sure
They're gone?
How to make sure you save your notes?
Your notes should save automatically. You might be in a different account.
How do you delete email addresses on your iPad or iPhone that are no longer?
Hit that little I. Is that I one of them?
No, it's not one.
But just tap it, and then go down and it says remove from recents.
It just populates.
No, you didn't hit the I.
It's not working as enough.
Oh, well, it has to be one with an I. Otherwise, it's in your address book, and you have to get it out of your address book, your contacts. Okay, let's make it a 10-minute break. I've got some super easy ways for you to get appointments in your calendar for mail and secret passwords to parties and how to add people's addresses to your mail. Super easy. Or to your contacts. Oh, thank you. Turn off record.